Alrighty. Howdy Neighbors, and welcome back to, what is it, Crimson Gray, Dusk and Dawn. I couldn't even think of the name. That's the sequel to Crimson Gray. This is a game I really liked, so I'm going to keep going. For a little while, she bruised herself tidying up the house and cleaning her knives, but she found herself anxious. It was no serious premonition. It was just an uneasy feeling. This music is any indication. She was glad to have him in her mind, and she was sure she would find his song again, but she wanted him in the flesh. She spent a while writing in a notebook, many of its pages now heavy with ink. Though she wasn't a very good artist, she found it soothing to draw John's face. Perhaps it would be something to take up in the future. But that couldn't hold her attention for long. It was a bad night to be home alone. After chewing on one notebook for a while, Lizzie decided that she should just go visit John in the library. She headed across campus, noting how different it was at night. The normal dorms were so bright, and would become progressively louder as students started returning. A few were ambling further, like drunk or stoned. They had been invited a time or two, but for the most part, she and John didn't want connections to those crowds. No. Being together and off campus, even just slightly off campus, set them apart from the other students. Normally, Lizzie never gave the subject a second thought. Now she found herself resenting their happiness. All of them were wasting their time so carelessly when he was working, alone and probably depressed. If she urged him to take fewer shifts, he would, Lizzie knew that. But as much as she wanted more of him, she didn't want to unfairly force him to do that. If John thought that extra work was necessary, then he was probably right. Still, Lizzie's eyes briefly flickered to a couple sprawled over one another on the grass, neither a threat. They were pulling out their clothes, though, and well past the point of just making out. Though they had finished college, Lizzie wanted a moment like that. Oh, before they finished college, she wanted a moment like that. Not doing something like that in public, but simply being together in the trees, enjoying themselves. College seemed to be a time of happy memories, light years, between the drama of meeting and the difficulties of adulthood. She wanted something that she could remember forever, and be captured in a picture. Yet right now everything was so complicated. Lizzie frowned and looked away, increasing her pace. It wasn't fair. The library itself was basically deserted, since few were doing research on a Friday night. That was why John ended up with a long shift, and why he took it, getting paid to do his own work. Lizzie found herself shifting to walk silently instead of giving any sign of her presence. This could be a good opportunity to observe him without him being aware. It had been the first time that she had come to love him, and though the other ways since coming to know him were better, watching still held a special place in her heart. She peered around the bookshelf and finally spotted him. John sat behind the desk reading from one of his books. He was making decent progress, brows furrowed in a concentrated look that she so loved. But occasionally his focus seemed to waver. She noticed his eyes grow a little distant, and he had to backtrack a few pages. Sometimes when he did, he would take out a sheet of paper beside him. He would look at a sheet of paper beside him for a while, occasionally making a note. Were they just his notes? But she knew John's note-taking habits extremely well. That wasn't how he usually operated. It was as if he was trying to read, but simultaneously distracted by thoughts of something else. Lizzie trusted completely that whatever he was working on was important. And she could also see that he was getting tired. John always pushed himself too far, letting his energy run down and often leading to him becoming depressed again. Smiling to herself, Lizzie straightened. The library was empty. Maybe he needed something a little different. Oh my god. You know what? As much as I do not want to do this actively, do it. Lizzie smiled and approached him. What's what I was supposed to do? I'm pretty sure it wasn't. Making sure to make enough noise for him to hear. She wished that she was wearing something sexier than sweatpants and a t-shirt, but it would be fine. John looked up and smiled. Oh, glad to see you. Nothing to do at home either, huh? I did everything already. You didn't seem too busy either. She shifted her posture, leaning on his desk and arching her back toward him strategically. Her smile shifted from pure happiness to pure desire. The effect was not lost to him. Oh, you look great. But, I am supposed to be working right now. You're supposed to help people who come into the library, right? I'm the only one who needs something right now. Without breaking eye contact, Lizzie slid an arm... what? An arm... up one of her shirt sleeves and pulled... okay. Hit it with the other arm, and swallowed, but kept watching as she reached behind her back and under her shirt, making it ride up her stomach a little. Preparation complete. Lizzie undid the clasp and wriggled out of it, and pulled it from her shirt and held it dangling in one hand. John, don't make me have done all that for nothing. You could take a break, right? John swallowed and got to his feet quickly. Let's find a break room. They hurried into one of the small study rooms inside the library. Lizzie watching John smile and laughing softly. It was so nice to see him give in and play sometimes. The study room held nothing but some bookshelves, 2 chairs, and a table. But the table was at about the right height, and the edge was smooth. So that was good enough. Knowing he might feel guilty about hurrying, Lizzie took it upon herself to... okay. I wanna wait. Oh god. We're skipping all of that. Why is this my life? I just wanted them to be adults. That's it. And why was I greeted to that? Do you want to stick around? I wasn't getting much done anyway. Sure. He spent the rest of his shift alongside him, occasionally reading, but more often just leaning against him and breathing his scent. She could still smell what they had done, and it was a wonderful reminder. Also wonderful was that the tension seemed to have eased from him. Being gross had been exactly what he needed, making Lizzie doubly glad that she had given in to her desires. When the shift finally ended, John locked up, and they headed home together. As they walked, Lizzie was surprised to feel his hand slide down her waist, caressing her curves. Maybe they weren't done after all, as he eagerly pulled him home faster. Nothing else, I hope. Thank you! Life proceeded normally enough. A significant part of the campus was busy preparing for the arrival. But there were even more people who didn't know or didn't care. What mattered to John, so it mattered to Lizzie. Since their time together, clearing out the room had gone well, they kept participating together. It hadn't all been as much fun as that, but Lizzie didn't mind the time preparing, and John seemed positively engaged by it. When she came home from class one day, she realized she might have gotten it entirely wrong. John slumped on the couch, too unfocused to notice her, with the emptiness in his eyes that she hadn't seen in some time, immediately making her heart hammer in her chest. John, you okay? Something wrong? I'm just a little tired. There's no problem or anything. Of course it's a problem if you're not feeling okay. You don't have to pretend to smile for me, John. It's okay to be sad sometimes. Dots. Thank you, Lizzie. It's nothing specific. I'm just having a bad day. And stay right there and don't worry about anything. She skipped closer and gave him a quick hug and a kiss, but didn't try to press it. Instead, she moved into the kitchen, getting something simmering. When John was depressed, he didn't want to eat. She had learned that trying to force it could turn bad, but the smell would slowly get through to him. While doing her work, Lizzie headed into the bathroom and counted his medicine, his depression medication. It didn't seem like he had forgotten or anything. Oh my god, why can I not read? It doesn't seem like he had forgotten or that he had taken more than usual, which is good. But although the medication helped, it couldn't make his life perfect. There had been a time when she had desperately hoped that she could have that, or that she could do that. She still wished that she could, but knew that his sadness didn't mean that he didn't love her. All she could do was be supportive. When she came back out, he had slumped back further, but she saw a bit more relaxation in his posture. Suddenly her heart ached with love for him, so intense that she had to support herself on the doorframe. She didn't deserve him. He was always so supportive, so kind, even when it cost him. It was easy to just bask in his presence, to see him as a shining paragon. But her John was human, had limited resources. If she had missed the signs, as she sometimes did, one of Lizzie's fingers slid up to her mouth and she started to bite down on it, but she pulled back. John wouldn't want her to do that. Instead, she moved into the room, determined to give back this time. She checked on the stoop, then went to sit beside him, just touching his side a little, being present without demanding anything from him. He smiled at her but didn't say anything. It was a quiet smile that faded into sadness, but she loved it too. These incidents were always magnifying her love for him. She didn't love his depression, but when he was like this, he seemed so truly real that she couldn't take her eyes off of him. Lizzie restrained herself and just sat supportively. After a time, though, she shifted. Later on, maybe they could eat, but until then... Do you need to talk about anything? I'll be okay. I think I just overextended myself preparing for Kelsey's visit. Oh, I've been pushing you too much, have I? I thought it was... Oh, it was so much fun when we worked together before, so... No, I didn't mean that at all. There's just so much to do. I know you want to help, but you know your limits, right? You can't help people if you're not okay. You're right, thanks, Lizzie. I was unhelpful. Lizzie thought that their conversation had gone well, but she was plagued by doubts. I would be! That conversation did not go well. She hadn't noticed this depression incoming, hadn't been able to prevent it. She began going over every interaction in minute detail, wondering if she had neglected something. Lizzie realized that she needed to get out of her head. If she let herself keep thinking like that, she would end up spending the evening developing elaborate plans to kill someone or kidnap John to safety. She needed to do something, but what? Just be supportive. Lizzie decided that it was her turn to carry him. She doted on him for the rest of the evening, getting everything he needed, eating with him when he got hungry, and staying close. When they finally went to sleep, she held him gently, glad to see some of the tension finally easing from his face. He actually fell asleep beside her, in the way that he hadn't in some time. What is that face? What is this face in the corner? As she was asleep, Lizzie let herself stare at him without trying to hide anything in her gaze, drinking him in. It was her John. She had to protect him. As she fell asleep, Lizzie settled on another thought. The visit might be a good thing, but she would be very glad when it was over. That's okay. When the day finally came, it wasn't as grand as all the build-up had led Lizzie to expect it. It was just another speaker coming to campus after all, and as one of the better universities in the region, they got plenty of speakers. The growing power of pharmaceuticals was a somewhat hot topic, but it was hardly a source of celebrity. Her expectations had been tampered by John's attitude, though. Erin and some of the other organizers were exhilarated, as if a visit from a guest speaker would change everything. But as usual, he was more reserved. It was one of the things that made his love for her so special, and she loved that part of him. The low-key nature of the entire thing did a lot to calm her anxiety. Though Lizzie had filled many pages of her notebook with plans in the event of an attack. That's a good thing to do. But given that this was one stop on a long speaking tour, it seemed less likely that Koitek would actually try something. They were headed out to attend soon. And though it was going to be as casual as most events on campus, Lizzie had dressed up a little bit out of habit. She lingered by the cabinet, trying to select which weapons to take along with her. The problem was that she had room for a few. Her axe, of course. The knives were always a problem. Ready to go, Lizzie? Almost, John. Just let me pick a knife and I'll be with you. He leaned against a nearby wall, watching her thoughtfully as she chose. For a moment, he spoke slowly. I'm just wondering, would you be happy if Kelsey managed to destroy Koitek somehow? Of course, it's terrible company. It gave you that awful drug and tried to take us apart. But she isn't going to destroy it. Just regulate it. Maybe things will get better, but I want revenge. I meant destroy it in a metaphorical sense. Dismantling the corporation. You're more thinking leveling it to the ground. Blood and flames. And of course I missed that. Lizzie answered happily, then finally picked a slender knife. A good balance of range, heavy enough to be durable, but thin enough to augment her axe with stabbing potential. She set it in its place and turned to him. But I don't mind things like this. Anything that works against them is good. And though I don't want you to hurt yourself, I'm happy you care about this so much. But if there's some way to leave them intact and ensure that they never bother us again, I take it, of course. You're the most important thing. She leaned forward to give him a kiss, letting this one linger. It might be their last one until the serious event is over. So she wanted to enjoy it. Not that she minded waiting. They made the next kiss when they came together all the sweeter. All the sweeter. I just wanted to say that you're the most important thing to me too. Sorry if I seem preoccupied by all this. No, it's fine. I like to see you focus on things you love. Well, I don't take you for granted. I hope I never do. Aw, John. If you keep talking like that, we won't make it to the event. He chuckled and offered her her arm, which she gladly accepted. They headed to the hall to hear the speech. They arrived and found the hall surprisingly full. Almost enough to make her wish they had arrived early. But it would be fine. Erin waved to them to sit near the front, but those seats were already full, so they took the ones near the back. Good to see our work wasn't wasted. At least, lots of people seem interested. Lots of people from the community, too. Doesn't surprise me. Koitek may not have any direct presence here, but they manufacture many drugs. People have to know about them. Lizzie reached to hold his hand while they waited for things to start. He took it and chatted casually with her until it was finally time. After some awkward testing of the mic and a squeal of feedback, the dean managed to quiet everybody down. Though she gave an introduction to Francisca Kelsey, Lizzie wasn't able to focus on it. She already knew the information, and it was essentially just a formality anyway. More importantly, Lizzie looked for the woman herself, and found her seated near the front. She looked like her pictures, nothing out of the ordinary, but Lizzie shifted her gaze between her and the exits just to be sure. When Francisca Kelsey took the stage, Lizzie surreptitiously? What? I don't even know what that word could be. She suddenly shot a glance at John. But she had been wrong about worrying. He had shifted to his purely focused mode, trusting what she had to say. On my first day of work at the FDCA, my supervisor said I should look for another job because the organization wouldn't be needed for long. She was a good speaker, though her speech had a feeling of one that had been repeated a huge number of times. It had an air of authenticity, but it was practiced. But it was a practiced authenticity. Lizzie can only focus on it in the background anyway. While listening idly, Lizzie came to the realization, something she had never said to John, probably something she should discuss with him. She squirmed a little in her seat, wondering what thoughts he might have about it, but she couldn't interrupt. Some people might have said that Quitek created her with their ill-advised experiment when Abby was pregnant. Lizzie had never felt that way, but until now had not reflected on the fact. Now she understood why. The experiment might have made her different from other girls, but Lizzie didn't care about that. What mattered to her was the person she has now, shaped by her years of growing up, and most importantly, shaped by John. Her world had felt so hollow and empty, and then she had focused on him, and she had been monomaniacal, and her focus on him, but he had opened up a new world of possibilities for her. Unable to contain herself, Lizzie leaned down and kissed John on the cheek. He blinked in surprise and then smiled at her. Placing her head on his shoulder, Lizzie let her focus drift back to the speech for a moment. The industry's lobbyists would have you believe that their self-regulation has been and will continue to be effective. The primary example that is always brought up is how thalidomide was kept out of the United States, and many children were spared birth defects. But as I demonstrated thoroughly in my book, this was more of a quirk of fate than self-regulation. And that thin layer of defense will not be remotely adequate given the massive increase in research and development we've seen over the past 2 decades. Most notably, many of their newest drugs have been most notably, many of the newest drugs being produced throughout conditions that are fundamentally subjective. Their consequences, if any, will take years to emerge and may not always be as clearly defined as birth defects. Make no mistake, there are people alive today bearing scars of this unchecked research. Sooner or later, they will come forward. Lizzie sat tensely, decided to hold in her concerns over that development, but John had already considered that. He squeezed her hand and bent closer to whisper to her, "Are you alright? John, would you want me to step forward and do that?" "No." His answer came immediately. Lizzie was a little surprised, and John seemed to have taken himself aback. But a moment later, he smiled. "No, you matter more to me than any of this. Anyone who stepped forward would be surrounded by a horrible amount of controversy. I want you here with me." Ew. Okay. Her smile widened and Lizzie leaned in to kiss him, tears in her eyes. She had so many things she wanted to say to him, but some people around them were already glaring at their whispering. When the two of them kissed, most of the glares rolled their eyes and turned away. "Hello. Thank you." Speech ended with
Francisca's usual conclusion. The FDCA was toothless compared to the pharmaceutical giants, and the world needed a far more comprehensible set of regulations. Part of Lizzie's mind acknowledged that was true, but it seemed a very distant and clinical thought compared to the warmth inside of her. After the speech, the floor was open to questions, which drew their attention away from each other. This was the part John was most interested in after all, and Lizzie agreed with him that they were more likely to hear new information during that part. The first person to get to the mic asked a boring, generic question about what students could do in the face of giant companies. She also had a flirtatious walk, so Lizzie scowled at her for both reasons. Of course she did. I mean, why wouldn't she? Soon, though, Aaron was at the mic to ask his question. Hi, Aaron. He covered the potential impact on the United States. Well, but only spoke in vague terms about the need of international regulations. What impact do you expect the rise of pharmaceutical giants to have on the global south? It was a question Lizzie hadn't really given much thought to. She reflected that Aaron was always caring about impoverished and disadvantaged people. That was not a trait Lizzie shared, but looking at it objectively, she decided it was a good form of kindness. She appreciated the kindness in John, so she should give Aaron some credit as well. You should. Outside of her mind, Francisca paused only for a moment before answering. Her response was smooth, but it lacked the practiced air of her speech. It's because she really didn't expect that. Any large corporation is going to have global impact, of course, and we'll see it especially in the rainforests and mineral-rich countries. Needless to say, those relationships will be exploitive. But I think we should be most suspicious of the actions that actually seem most benevolent, specifically the ostensibly altruistic donations of drugs to various countries for free or produced at cost. For example, I have long believed that SAS Inc. is distributing insufficiently tested drugs and effectively using the... oh my god, I can't read these big words. Effectively using the supposed beneficiaries of their donations as test subjects. But there could be serious concerns even for well-intentioned attempts. This is why you don't record when you first wake up. Such as mental stimulants. Menninger AG donated in sub-Saharan Africa. They've had a positive impact on test scores, yes, but those drugs have serious long-term side effects when not taken according to a rigid schedule. Given the reality of the situation, both financial and personal, many recipients simply won't follow or even have a chance to follow the proper course. We'll be seeing the consequences of that for years. A decent question, if not one that held particular interest to her. Lizzie listened to a few more bad questions before she sensed a general movement in John's body and realized that he was getting up to ask a question of his own. She nodded to him and let go of his hand. She listened in irritation as other people asked questions, but finally it was his turn. He cleared his throat nervously, but wasn't so uncomfortable that he might have been before. For those of us who want to have a career in this field, where do you think we can make the most difference? What balance do you see between regulating from the outside and trying to change organizations from within? Not a bad question. So Lizzie found herself wondering just how much it mirrored his thought process. He had discussed his thoughts about the future with her, of course, but there was something different about hearing him state them out loud in front of so many people. A good question, but a difficult one. I'd like to believe that the best answer is the FDCA, or another regulatory body, but I'm not sure I'd recommend someone who hasn't started their career go that direction. We'll see what happens with our lobbying over the next few years. As for reforming from within, I'm tempted to say that's impossible. Look at SoftSynth. It carried the Japanese economy for a time, but now internal conflict is threatening long-term deflation. In my mind, the biggest threat is that corporations will lack meaningful competition and make it effectively impossible for anyone to regulate them. So honestly, what we might need more than anyone is business majors. I got a laugh from the audience, but it struck Lizzie as a serious answer. John pondered it as well, his eyes contemplative as he returned to sit beside her. Lizzie was dying to know his thoughts, but for now she just smiled as he sat down beside her. None of the questions after that were particularly notable. Lizzie began to get nervous as their time ran out, since if something bad would happen, it would likely happen toward the end. It did end without incident. As had every obnoxious situation for years since the Battle of Cortec operatives, but she was only slowly beginning to relax. If all those events had gone smoothly, maybe their wedding would as well. If that were true, then what were they waiting for? Lizzie gazed toward John as they headed out, pondering the thought. But there were so many things that they were dealing with. So many considerations, so many thoughts. And it was wonderful just being with him. There's no need to rush. Setting the matter aside, Lizzie happily just discussed the speech with John as they headed home. There would be discussion groups, but the only person she wanted in her group was him. They talked late into the night and happily fell asleep still in their clothes. Drink some of my gamer juice. That's soda, by the way. In the middle of a boring psychology class, Lizzie partially listened to the lecture while she worked on her notebook. She was drawing lots of pictures of John, getting a little better at it. Sometimes her focus drifted though, and she found herself writing his name over and over again. Now that the event was past, most of her immediate fears had been put to rest, at least temporarily. If Koitek wasn't likely to be tracking them, then she had more options. Maybe they could get married after all. If so, she was disappointed that she had made them wait so long. But how to get to that point? Though she didn't worry about making John afraid of her. She didn't want to add any stress to his life that seemed too insistent. And yet it had to be perfect. Their wedding would be another treasured memory of their lives that she wanted to carry around with her forever. A small part of her did worry that he was putting it off for some reason of his own. She didn't doubt it, couldn't doubt, that he was fully committed to her. But there was a difference between living together and actually getting married. The professor said something that drew some of her attention away from what really mattered. That list sounded like it would be on the exam, and he did like to include things that were lecture only to catch sleeping students. Lizzie quickly scribbled it down and memorized later, irritated at the distraction. The only reason she was even in the class was that she needed the credit to graduate. At first, Lizzie had actually been interested, wondering if she could learn anything about depression that would help her be a better partner to John. But mostly, the class was just useless. Everything was focused on specific patterns of thought and declaring them to be unnatural, when they didn't seem any stranger than the way most people thought, at least not to her. Trying to engage with it mentally just irritated her. And what they said about depression just made her angry. They talked about depression like it was a simple problem that could be cured. The professor was even a fan of Cortec. Lizzie was certain that if he had his way, they'd take her John and replace him with a different person. Not realizing it, her writing in a notebook had become sketchy and angry. Lizzie refocused and tried to draw him again. The way he looked when he came through sadness and showed her that quiet happiness deep within his eyes. When the lecture ended, Lizzie wasn't quite there, so she bit her lip and tried to finish quickly. No one usually paid her any mind. She could finish and leave herself in a good place with... Holy shit. Oh no! Oh no, 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 no! Oh no, 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 no! Lizzie reacted instantly at the voice over her shoulder, slamming her notebook closed with one hand, while she dug for her axe in another. She restrained herself from acting, instead focusing up on the girl beside her. That is some serial killer shit right there. I don't think my personal drawings are of any business to you. Oh, it's everyone's problem when you're stalking some random guy. Lizzie forced herself to smile. Not mess anything up for him. Her body trembled just slightly as she put her notebook away and rose her feet calmly. This isn't some random guy, he is my boyfriend. And does he know you keep a stalker journal? No, but that was beside the point. She didn't understand at all. She was insulting their relationship. Lizzie evaluated her quickly. No physical threat, no capability to put up any resistance. No. Oh, they are in caps. Okay. Ooh. No. Take a deep breath. Lizzie maintaining control for John's sake and answered calmly. I don't think it's your place to meddle in our relationship. Yeah, no. This is just like what we were talking about last week. Either he doesn't know and you're creepy as hell, or he does and you have some kind of weird, codependent relationship. If you can't see you need help, you need someone to help you. You shouldn't say things like that. Yeah, you really shouldn't. That kind of sucks. I forgot to save. Look, I'm just applying what we learned. John is the kind of person, he wouldn't judge me like you do. And he's just enabling your condition. No, stop talking. Please stop talking. I just took a deep breath and took a moment to think. We have so many good options. We have slit her throat immediately, remove her fingers and feed them to her, befriend her until an opportunity for extensive torture, end the conversation quickly, and acquire napalm, bury her alive, end the conversation until John knew about it, strangle her with her own intestines, or remove her cleanly and dispose of the body. I think we should tell John. Only a promises to him prevent Lizzie from doing what she wanted to. Instead, she gave the other girl a smile. The professor also said that analysis should only be done by professionals. Are you a certified professional? This was nothing special. Only the best that Lizzie could manage while under such stress. And the other girl took a step back, suddenly uncertain. Look, I was just making an observation, okay? Perhaps you should make such observations about your own relationship. A moment later, the girl fled the class with remarkable speed. Lizzie suppressed her urge to give chase. That had not been entirely wise of her, but she didn't care about that right now. Her world was still hollow, and she slowly became aware that she was gripping the handle of her axe so tightly that it hurt. Her mind still knew exactly what it wanted to do. She remembered John and set those thoughts aside. focus, Lizzie carefully loosened her grip and headed home at the highest speed that wouldn't draw attention. When she arrived, she threw herself into John's arms and held him tightly. He looked concerned, and she hesitated for a moment before the words spilled out of her mouth in a white-hot flood. She held nothing back, telling the story in a disjointed tangle of the events, her emotions, and what she wanted to do. John just held her and listened, not judging in the slightest. Being in his arms always calmed her, and soon Lizzie was closer to what others would consider normal. She did like being this way, happy and peaceful. She could do more for John like this. And, it was an unintended side effect, and it stopped her from slaughtering anyone. John, thank you. I'm always here for you, Lizzie. As she gained clarity, she realized that she had added stress to his life by doing this. Though she berated herself for it, Lizzie knew that he didn't mind helping her in this way. Does it make you angry to hear the things she said? It does a little. But she probably just has a big head from learning new concepts in class and wanted to use them on people. John is kind, too kind. I'll always protect him. And I'm glad you do, Lizzie. But you don't need to hurt anyone to protect me, okay? Okay. She embraced him warmly, trying to pour affection into him instead of just receiving it. Part of her regretted not holding back her thoughts, since it had drained him a little. But at least she knew that he would never judge her. She stayed in his arms for a while after that, setting aside her guilt over causing him stress, and just indulging in his kindness for a while. The girl had been right about one thing. A normal boy could never have been with her. John was special, and that's why they were so wonderful together. Even as she regained her full calm, however, one thing didn't change in her mind. Maybe it wasn't possible due to the circumstances, but it would have been better to kill the girl. A lie. After the incident, Lizzie spent a while sorting through her remaining thoughts. She had completely filled up one notebook, and she started a second, and took it with her to boring classes. Math wasn't boring, but she did find herself running her fingers over the edge of the notebook as she worked. Later, for sure, she would finish the requirement. She didn't mind math. It was straightforward, free of judgments. Though she didn't understand her professor's talk about its elegance and beauty, it didn't seem incomprehensible to her. He was alright for a not John person. After class, she floated across campus to return home. That annoying couple tried to engage her in conversation again, but she was able to make polite small talk without committing to anything, and keep on her way without wasting too much time. When she arrived home, she found John looking at her notebook. Fuck. And now we die. Her focus condensed down to a single point, flickered over everything. His posture, his eyes, the exact set of his mouth, the speed at which he looked up toward her. Once such a thing would have been terrifying. It still made her scared that she might have gone too far this time, added doubt to his mind and ruined their relationship. And he did have a concerned look on his face. And, so there was no simple, easy solution. Lizzie, are these things that you felt that you couldn't tell me? What? No, not at all. Hey, I do believe you. Why have you been keeping notebooks like this as long as we've been together? She squirmed a little at that. Her desire to smooth things over and make him happy, warring with her desire to be completely honest with him. I had books like that for a long time, and now I only started again recently. That's the only one, other than the new one I just started. Did something happen to make you more stressed? Is this something I've done? No! There's real pain in his eyes, and Lizzie hated herself for a brief moment. She caused him more pain, just as she swore to herself she would never do it again. John never rushed to judgment, and he was strong, even if he was often sad and she longed to protect him. Their relationship had been through more intense things. This wouldn't be the end. Lizzie carefully sat down opposite him. Definitely isn't anything you did, John. And it isn't anything specific. I've just been a little anxious lately. I was worried about the speech might be more of a problem. I can understand that. He kept loafing through the notebook, leaving Lizzie to squirm uncomfortably. It represented her true thoughts, but some of them felt a little awkward under his gaze. And she couldn't tell what he was thinking. That fact ate her up inside until she couldn't hold it back anymore. You don't hate me, right? Nothing in the notebook scares you? John looked up at her with astonishment. A brief moment later, he moved forward to embrace her. And though it was wonderful, it was his honest surprise at her question that meant the most. She had just been paranoid. There had been no need to fear. Oh, Lizzie, of course I don't hate you. And you said that you were stressed. I felt like you couldn't tell me. He wrapped an arm around her and pulled her so they sat side by side. Put the notebook into his lap. When I read these, I mostly just see you. This is who you are. And I can feel your love for me on every page. That sometimes very literally. He had lurched through to a page where she had drawn the two of them, naked, embracing one another. It was surrounded by sketches of models of various gross positions. Lizzie had forgotten that she'd drawn those and found herself giggling. Ew. I was just thinking about us together. And that's gross? Oh. But I didn't mean that it wasn't wonderful just to do it normally. It's just great that... Don't worry, Lizzie. I understand. Turning the pages to one of her drawings of killing Smith, his lips twitched into a bit of a smile. These are... I don't know, cute. I've seen you murderers, Lizzie, and this is different. Playful. If it helps you release your feelings, I think it's healthy. Oh, John. Should have known you would understand. I'm not perfect, but I'm always here and I want to understand you. So I have to ask, is there really nothing? Is there a reason you've been stressed lately? The things that grow in your psych class? This decided leaned against his chest, considering. It was a difficult question. Not just because she had to think about what the best answer would be, but because she wasn't entirely certain herself. In her mind, her thoughts all flowed together. Speaking to him made them feel clearer, but it wasn't always easy. Let's just explain it. Let's be fully real. And let's just explain it. You mentioned the terrible girl in psych class, all those awful things she said about us. Lizzie flipped to the page after the event had occurred. Pages, actually. She had forgotten how much she had written after that. No, now it was crystal clear to her. After that, I felt everything. I hate her, John. I still wish I could get rid of her. But you won't, right? No. Writing it down captures what I'm feeling somehow. When I look over it again, I remember all those emotions. But there's some distance now. I know how to strong inside of me. I think I get that. Maybe that's a healthy thing. Though I do worry that sometimes you get yourself more worked up writing out your thoughts. But it doesn't have to be writing, John. I get the same effect with talking to you. And it's better that way. Not just because I'm talking to you, but because you always have new thoughts and interesting things to say. So sometimes I can think about things differently. Glad to hear that. I'm always here to talk, Lizzie. I know it's wonderful, but I don't have to share everything, do I? Sometimes what I'm thinking is just silly and it doesn't matter. I don't want to waste your time. He considered that very seriously, then pulled her a little closer with a smile. You can tell me anything at all, Lizzie, but don't feel obligated. Unless you don't have a working brain, everyone has tons of minor thoughts. They just pass through your mind. They don't matter unless you focus on them. I mean, I have a lot of dumb little thoughts. There's no point in sharing. That's not true. I'd love to see every single thought you ever think. I believe you. But since that's not the world we live in, we could just talk to each other, okay? She eagerly nodded and pressed herself against him even closer. She was right to talk to him. John always had good things to say.
Yeah, he does.
There's one thing we need to talk about, though. This page, for example. Lizzie blinked in surprise, but she scanned it quickly. It was a page just with writing where she talked about him. Likely about her love for him and many other things. What could be amiss there? Do you always write pronouns of me in capital letter? Yes! I was talking about that. Of course, John. You're not like any other boy. You're the only person for me. I'm glad you love me. But I don't know about this. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with it. What? Why not? She stared at him, finding the true dismay on her face. Inside she was panicking. Usually John was so calm and steady. She loved understanding more about him. When she actually felt confused, it always terrified her, forcing her to wonder if she was somehow drifting away from him forever. I know how intensely you feel about things, but this feels a little much. I want to be your partner, Lizzie. I don't want you to worship me. John deserves it. You're wonderful and I love you with my whole heart. I know that. And since I love you too, I have to be honest with you. This worries me a little bit. This capitalized version of me, not really me. I'm most afraid all of this is for someone else who represents me. But is it me in truth? Oh, he looks so sad. No, it's not like that at all. She clutched him closer, his head against her chest as she gripped one hand in his hair. But through her dismay, she began to understand. The thought upset her a little, and the idea that she might be worshipping some false form of him was terrifying. But she could understand it. John was still her John. If I just referred to you like any other boy, it doesn't feel right. Like I'm saying they're the same as you. And I will never betray you like that, John. Lizzie, I think I can understand a little. But can you understand me too? I do, John, I do. She stopped gripping him so tightly, and let him pull back slightly. They stared into each other's eyes for a while and both smiled. Nothing that had been said had changed their love for each other, and they both knew it. Lizzie leaned forward to kiss him gently. John was being too humble. But she wouldn't argue over that with him. She understood why he was upset. And she didn't mean to suggest anything like that. Certainly not to him. And now she needed to avoid suggesting it to herself. Maybe she could accomplish the same thing another way. It was only her fear that she was betraying him that made her think that way. If she had no fear, if she loved him even more utterly and totally than she ever had before, then it wouldn't matter if she capitalized the word or not. It does matter. Though she wasn't there yet, Lizzie felt peaceful enough to quiet her thoughts and just enjoy kissing him for a while. Kissing him. When they finished, John pulled back and smiled gently at her. Well, that was quite a conversation. If you want to take a break, I'd understand, but if you want to keep talking, I'm here for you. There's only one thing in the notebook I want to discuss, John. It may take a long time. She saw a hint of tension in his eyes, but he was always willing to work with her. Fortunately, in this case, it was unnecessary. Lizzie kept her smile off her face as she flipped to the appropriate page. Elsie added the sketch of and there we go. I'm not doing that again. I think I'm gonna end the episode here exactly. God, so many. So, thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you later.